You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and technology, where we mash up the Internet of Thoughts with software as a sickness, and where musical wearables are worn on the inside and made from heartbeats and brainwaves. I'm your host, Dmitri Vietze, the CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors. We're a PR firm that works in music, tech, and music tech. And today I am happy to have with me Jeff Van Driel, the CEO of mVibe, here as our guest. Some of you may know Jeff from his off and on decade at NAXOS, where I met him, and where he spent several years as CEO, but that was then and this is now. Jeff is here to tell us about the new company he is running. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great, Dmitri. Thanks for having me.
You're calling in from Nashville.
Yes, the booming metropolis center of the music business, the world center of the music business, Nashville, Tennessee.
One of the things we talk about on Music Tectonics is how music is like fire, meaning that music is across all silos, all places. It used to be that maybe, you listen on a jukebox or a radio, or you went to a record store or whatever, but music is in video games and streaming and exercise equipment. We've even talked about a barbecue that now comes with music, or a lamp that comes with music from IKEA and Sonos. But one of the things that I noticed early was that music really got used quite a bit more in in TV and film, and the whole sync world has exploded. And I'm sure you'll have lots to share with us. But let's just kick it off with telling us about what is mVibe, this company that you've been CEO of from January to now.
Yes, so mVibe is a B2B platform that aggregates cover songs for the purpose of sync licensing. So it was founded last year in LA. The founders brought me on as an additional founder in January, and we were able to license over 500,000 songs so we could launch our platform in June. And we have 500,000 cover songs that can be searched and compared and licensed. So we utilize AI to create specialized metadata that enhances our search, and we differentiate ourselves from other types of sync companies like production music libraries or microsync licensing sites. We're typically looking for the higher dollar syncs, and we combine expertise, content, community, and technology to help films, ads, etc., to find great music and to make the licensing process happen.
Wow, there's so much you said there. I want to unpack a little bit of that. So you said you're looking for the high dollar licenses. So it really is just more like mainstream film, TV advertising. You're not looking for YouTubers?
That is correct. So high dollar, of course, with cover songs is different than high dollar for original songs. So but we're not into the microsync world. We're not looking to put music into onto YouTube or any of that sort of thing, or even for advertising for YouTube. That's not our market. It's not a market that I think there's been a lot of tech companies that are addressing that market. So we don't see the need for that. mVibe fills a void in the cover song market just because there's nobody that does what we do on the scale that we do, and cover songs are scattered all across the internet, and there's just no one place to to find and compare it. And beyond that, cover songs are they're not listed as cover songs. Typically, they're listed the typical way, where you have a song title and an artist. And when someone's looking for a cover song, they're interested in who the primary or the original artist is, or who the who's the artist that made it famous, which is not always the same artist.
So interesting. I want to ask more about that. Why is the focus on cover songs for mVibe?
So there's a couple different reasons. So the primary reason was, and the idea was born from the fact that one of our founders, who creates a lot of music for film and TV. He does movie production. He has numerous production music libraries. He writes music under 12 different aliases or something like that, and does creates all sorts of music. He was continually approached by music supervisors to quickly make a cover song. and he would do it and be able to make money doing it. But he's like, this doesn't make sense. He knew that there's millions of cover songs in the marketplace, but why can't these music supervisors find it? So so in conjunction with one of the other founders who works really closely with some music supervisors, due to the fact that he writes for TV, 4 or 5 television shows at a time, they brainstormed this idea of having an aggregation of cover songs and really helping music supervisors in an area where it's very chaotic and and not very organized. So that's the first and the main reason. The second reason, which goes into 2020, 2021 for us, is that it because it is an area of the market that is somewhat ignored, or it's not served very well. We're able to build something in where the market demand is there already, which helps fund us to grow a platform to build the technology that will help with all sorts of other music. So it's really it's a stepping stone for us. It's a large market, but it's not the end game for us. We really want to build technology around music licensing that solves a lot of problems in the industry, including changing the way music sync happens in general currently.
In meaning that it's pre-cleared and through a platform you can license it rather than having to negotiate with two sides of the rights each time.
No, I mean that's obviously something that we would like eventually. That's part of the whole process. Where we want to change things. But there are everybody understand. They don't understand. I was going to say everyone understands how complicated it is. We know it is very complicated, and there's a reason why rights holders don't want to just make rate cards for every piece of music that they own, whether it's the publishing or the sound recording. But the bigger challenge that we want to solve is the fact that there's just so much noise in the marketplace. So if you're a music supervisor, you've got a lot of really good friends because all these people are pitching music. So from every different record label, you're being pitched, the greatest new band or whatever the priority is at the record label, and you've got artists that are contacting you, and once in a while, even publishers are proactive, and you've got publishing agents contacting you. So there's there's just a lot of noise, and there's not a there's not much technology that helps basically pair the right music with the right picture. I think that's the ultimate goal, and the pricing and negotiations is something that could come later, but that's actually not even our first goal, because we recognize the value of the music. We understand if you own a Stone song, you're going to protect it, and you're not going to sell it very cheaply, and you shouldn't. But the fact that you've got so much noise in the marketplace and so much middlemen, and really, I mean, from our end of it, it's we're building a platform business in a world where in a tech world where platforms have revolutionized a lot of different things. And I think that's kind of where we come from, where we obviously need to have allies with record companies and music publishers, but we have to also figure out what the industry needs overall. And then one of the things I need to kind of tread the fine line. If you think of a company like Uber, I mean, they didn't have hotels as their allies in the early days. So it's and that's obviously they revolutionized how rooms are sold. um,
Oh, you mean Airbnb?
Sorry, yeah, I was mixing.
Yeah.
Those would both be good examples, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a mixed metaphor there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Airbnb with rooms and Uber with car travel.
Right. Yeah. So, why is there such a high demand for cover songs among music supervisors?
So there's a couple different reasons. I mean, the one that everybody thinks about first is that it's going to be cheaper, and in general, almost all the time, it is cheaper than the original. And that's obviously a good reason. If you just if you go to the publisher and you find out how expensive a song is, your budget might not allow you to then license the original. And as most people know in the music sync space, that the typical ask is that there's MFN pricing between the publishing and the sound recording, so that if you negotiate first with the publisher, you're going to pay the same amount, obviously still subject to approvals for the sound recording of the original. In the case of covers, that's the cover song is completely negotiable, so it does not need to be the same price as the publishing is. So that's one reason, and a good reason. But beyond that, it's the reimagination or the reinterpretation of the song that often fits the scene better. And I think that that's one of the exciting things, and we see a lot of growth in a lot of areas. So TV shows use lots of covers, a lot of films now use covers, and it's you see kids movies where they use a cover, so the cover song can sound like a really cool and hip song to the kids, but for the adults that drag them there, they get some recognition from the song from when it was a hit 20 years ago. And so there's a lot of good reasons for doing that. I think that in advertising, the fact that you can use a cover song, there's a couple benefits. The one is, if it was a hit song, there's a good correlation between the fact that it was a hit and it's a good song. So you don't need to try to make something original and see if it's going to work for your ad. That it's a good song, that's why it was successful. And then secondly, when you then use a kind of a reinterpretation or reimagination of it to the listener, they're like, I know that song, but they're also thinking of it as being somewhat original, even though it's not the original. So there's that's kind of a rambling answer, but there's a lot of good reasons to do it. And I think that the music business in general thinks, of the song, of the music and the song as one thing. But, for songwriters, for songwriters that write songs, the more times it's, recorded, the better for them. There's more money they're going to make. So, I think we need to think of them as two different properties. And when a song, becomes a hit and other people record it, it's just good for business overall.
I feel like what you're talking about is in line with just even a broader trend beyond just sync, but just this idea of the relationship between sound and visuals becoming more, maybe just because we have more and more video in our daily lives, becoming more of a form of expression in itself. And so I think your point about a cover song, it simultaneously adds something to the video, but it also changes your perception of the song that you've just been listening to, and the visual that goes with it also changes the perception of the song. And I think in the Netflix, Hulu era, we're seeing so many interesting new combinations of video and music. And that's not getting into microsync, the whole TikTok and music, where you have user generated in a lower bar to get your music and video published, if you could call it that. But it's just interesting that, like, as a society, as a global culture, we're doing new things with video and music that changes our experience of music, which is really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. A couple thoughts on that, though. The one is, I came from the classical music business, when I was at NAXOS for about 11 years. And, that's basically all cover music. And a symphony orchestra, may want to do a recording of one of their performances, and it's a cover song. And, the reason they're doing that is because the people that are listening get to hear how the orchestra and the principal violinist and the conductor, how they all interact and interpret what the composer originally composed. And it's going to sound different than a previous performance by a different orchestra. And I think that's where in that world, the value of the composition is considered completely separate from the performance and the recording of that performance. So that kind of carries on into the cover music world. On the issue of video, you're right. Video really permeates our world, and that has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. From the rise of YouTube and the use of smartphones to the amount of gaming that goes on, and then also the way the industry has included music more in different mediums or in different applications. Even in TV shows, if you go to the 50s, or 60s, and watch a sitcom from back there was way less music put into that than there is currently, and so that certainly has changed.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about classical music. And I think it's true with all traditional music, folk forms of folk music. You never called them cover songs; they were just songs that people knew, and it was really about each individual's interpretation and expression of that song. That was part of the art of folk and traditional music, and classical music. And now it's interesting to see that interpretation is well aligned with memes that are not even necessarily musical. Just this idea that people take these themes and they keep recycling them in these new ways, and it's that creativity around that interpretation on visual memes as well as with music and video and so forth. And it's kind of strange that in classical music, everyone's a cover band.
Hmm. That's right.
For the most part, with the exception of really contemporary and experimental ensembles and performers and things like that. But but in any other popular form of music, cover bands tend to have a negative. People have a negative kind of association with just that idea, cover band. Even though a lot of people will go and see a cover band and they'll be happy to see familiar
Yeah.
stuff.
Except that 10% of the, music listening tends to be Christmas music. I mean, I made up that percentage just because there's 5 weeks of the year where everybody listens to only Christmas music. Everybody, of course, used as a loose term, but Christmas music or holiday music is almost exclusively cover music, and we don't think of it that way.
That's true, and some of us would put quotes around music in that sentence too. But
There you go. Good one. I like that. Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, in terms of musical expression, cultural expression, or consumption, or whatever you want to call it, sure, that's totally true. So before we dive a little bit more into kind of the broader context of sync and maybe even around music and technology, our focus on the podcast, we both touched a little bit on your background, but let's say a little bit more about your background and why you're leading this now.
Sure. So I'll give you, a quick, you know, overview of my career. So I grew up in Canada, so I'm a Canadian and an American, but I studied business and then went to law school, graduated with a law degree, and then went into the animal feed business for 13 and a half years. So that was the logical next step from that was to come to the music business. But and I say that, without, laughing too loud, but I am the only, guy that ever,
I've never
became
seen
general
that.
counsel for a multinational, music company by spending 13 and a half years in the animal feed business. But I did that. It came to NAXOS in 2007 when there was a change in leadership there. And through one of my contacts that I had gone to college with, I got recruited to fill in at NAXOS and did a variety of different jobs there and got very involved in growing their digital distribution business as well as being involved as general counsel and in operations and finance there. And then in 2013, I believe, I became the CEO and led the North American division for a little over 4 years. At which point, I decided that there was something else that I wanted to do. So that's when I decided to take a bit of a break. I did a little bit of consulting and kind of looked for something that I found very intriguing. And then mVibe approached me, and I decided to latch on. And to answer your question, what may there's a couple reasons why I'm suitable for it. I mean, the one is that I know what I don't know, so I don't pretend that I'm an expert at everything. So my goal is to lead, this company to great growth. I think that I bring some vision, but that's something that you cultivate. I'm not the only person in the organization with vision. I bring a lot of experience, particularly around data and big data. As you know, classical music, the necessity to have clean and detailed metadata is very important, and that's also very important to our business here for creating additional data so that the music is actually discoverable. So that's a big thing. I think that I've had some experience in building divisions from very small into medium to large companies. So I think that that's kind of why it's there's a fit. I think the passion though is a big thing. I love the music business. I really think that I can broaden my personal horizons by getting involved in the intersection between music tech and music and film. So that's exciting to me personally. But beyond that, it's there's just a thrill in building a team and building a product and making it successful. And I would be remiss if I didn't if I sounded like I was bragging, and I was not bragging on my team, because I've so far been able to recruit some really top talent, and that's really what is very exciting. And I think that that's really what's going to help make this a success.
So now you've been in this for several months, coming on a year soon. Um, I'm curious if you've had a chance to start to get a sense of what's been changing in sync and where you see sync going in the next 2 to 3 years.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, the sync business is changing. In some ways it's changing rapidly, in other ways it's not changing at all. The ways that it's changing is really, with a couple interesting business models that are starting to grow quite rapidly. The subscription licensing business with companies like MusicBed and Soundstripe, who, both seem to be getting a lot of traction. And that's some new technology and new ways of licensing music for various uses that's growing. I think that the area that is going to grow really rapidly is for podcasts. And I know that, people like you that, have a podcast, if you're not using your own original, music, you're going to be licensing it, and you would think that right away. But there are a lot of podcasts that do not license their music yet, and I know that there's a lot of people such as Sound Exchange getting involved in trying to figure out ways to make sure that we monetize that correctly. And we all know that, podcasting is, a rapidly growing, part of the business. So I see that changing. I think beyond that, where we don't see is changing is that the very few, the way music is pitched isn't changing very rapidly. And I mean, I'm sure that there's people at record labels that would disagree with me, but there's, wearing my critical hat, I would say that it's a fairly archaic system. People don't want to, they don't want to work together. Nobody has ever been able to build a global platform that would aggregate all the songs and all the publishing in the world, like a Spotify or Apple Music do for music consumption. I think that that's something that will need to, exist at some point. It's not going to happen this year or next, but it's something that just makes logical sense for the size of our business, that would actually, happen. The global sync business is, somewhere between $1 and $1.5 billion between, sound recordings and and publishing. So it's, it would make sense that there would be, something global that would help the business. But change is not necessarily easy. So I see that evolving, and it's, we already see that happening. But um, beyond that, I just think that the industry continues to evolve, particularly around what types of music are getting synced, and as tastes change. And the 80s music was synced a lot, in the last few years, and I see the 90s, hits from the 90s being synced now and moving forward.
From kind of a broad level, more consumer side of it, it sure appears that music is getting used a lot more with film and TV. It used to be something that if you had music in your film or TV show, that differentiated you from other folks, and now or other shows or films, and now it seems like you almost have to have it to be considered a modern quality TV show. And so it's not if you have it that differentiates, it's
Yeah.
which music you have that differentiates it, how you use it in conjunction with film. So it looks like, and I'm curious if you can confirm, it looks like more there's, I mean, sure, we're not even talking about the user generated microsync stuff, but in film and TV, and I guess advertising, it looks like more music's being used and licensed.
Yeah, I mean, so the market overall is growing, somewhere between 10 and 15% per year. That's, the average of the last 3 years. I don't think that's going to change, or it may actually even increase. The availability of music at various price points, has made it easy and, seamless for somebody to put music in their film. So, if you have a low budget film, you can find some music. You won't be able to, get a Beatles song, but you probably can get some cool indie band that, it hasn't got any traction yet, and get some good music into your film. Or, the use of music libraries, that's an area that has grown, significantly in the last few years. There's a lot of production music that has been created, where it's, original production music, so people can license it all in and not worry about it, and in perpetuity. So, it's quite easy to get music. And of course, that's competition then for those of us that are after the higher dollar sync. But I think that that's it's a case where the rising tide makes all ships rise.
I'm curious about that because I do generally agree with that theory, um, and it appears if you look at the data, it appears that the tide is rising across the board. Does the access and availability of more music for sync, with fewer maybe gatekeepers you could say involved, does that lower the dollar value of sync for the higher strata of music?
Yes and no. So, I mean, in general, it doesn't change it significantly because good songs are still going to cost a lot of money. But you're right. I mean, there's that middle area of the business where somebody can get a good song cheap, and it's easy to make quality recordings. Very easily, people can record in their bedrooms and make high quality recordings. You can get your albums mixed or mastered at least using AI, and not hire a mastering engineer. There's all these things that make music more affordable so they can be that also makes them able to be synced. I think that the bigger thing though that pushes the pricing down is when the power is held by few people. So obviously you've got Amazon, and you have Netflix, you have Disney, you've got companies like that where they control so much of the music that gets placed that that can help drive the prices down. But on the flip side, I mean, there's just so many new shows being created that I think that that's kind of what makes up for it. So the average dollar of a sync, and I do not have the statistics in front of me, but the average dollar value may be going down, but the overall business is increasing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what I would suspect. It's interesting when people talk about, music listening, the consumer side of music listening. People get very emotional and upset about the value of music in streaming, the per stream, or how it is to make a career out of being a musician. Um, but something that I've always thought about is I think the technology that's done more to make that more difficult for people to make a living at music is actually on the production side. It's that creation of music, having such a surplus of music, and some of the tools you've talked about, not just the automated mastering, but even just the bedroom recording and so forth. On the one hand, has created access to more and more people to be able to record quality sounding music. I mean, it doesn't make you a better piano player necessarily, although there's tools for that too. Um, but it, I think the flood of the market of how much stuff is being created, I think, is probably a bigger impact on the value of music than the availability of streaming.
Hmm.
So there may be some parallel in sync as well with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the parallel in sync, but I do know what you're talking about. I think that it's kind of a combination effect for those people that blame streaming and all of that. It's the one thing that we can be happy about is that the business right now is a very real business. So if you create music and someone listens to it, somebody's getting paid. I don't want to say the artist gets paid because they may have given all their rights to a record label,
Right.
but somebody is getting paid. It may not necessarily be quite what the value should be, but it's the artificial business of new mediums for carrying music, so that when somebody liked one song, they may have bought a full album 4 or 5 times, between buying the cassette, the vinyl, the download, the CD, etc. That business doesn't exist very much anymore. So it's much more of a real business. Music people, artists get paid, or should be getting paid, when the music is consumed. I'm and I say all that because I'm a bit of a pragmatist, and I think that we use technology to make things better. For the same reason, I'm not scared of AI for music creation. AI is going to create music, and it's going to be synced. Where that is going to be an area of the business that we're going to compete with. But I don't fear that, because I think that that's part of the natural evolution of the music business, and we'll see where it goes. People, the creativity of people is still needed. We know that machines are not going to 100% replace people. So we'll all that's going it's going to evolve over time, and we kind of need to see where it all goes.
We did a recent episode with the music tech journalist Danny Deal from The Verge, and we got into quite a heated discussion about artificial intelligence and music. And our listeners should check out that episode if you want to dig into that whole idea of is AI competing with human musicians. My kind of take on it is, in some cases, it's helping musicians make music,
Right.
and in some cases, it's creating almost a new form of music. And I could imagine, Jeff, in the form of sync, there's going to be situations where AI music absolutely won't work, and there'll be situations where AI music might work better.
Right.
Not just based on budget, but even on what the sound is or
Yeah.
things. I mean, I think some AI music is a little bit like elevator music.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it serves its purpose. It blocks the background. It masks other sounds. It might not be as entertaining or culturally relevant as human created music at certain times.
Right. And maybe it'll force creators to be more creative. I don't know. There's going to be a competition, and it's going to change. You know how music is made and how it's used. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that all evolves.
Yeah, it's cool to see you kind of stepping back. We've talked about sync and mVibe. What are some of the other intriguing trends that you're seeing in music and technology right now? I mean, you ran a label and a distribution company. You've built other platforms through that work with NAXOS. I know you've been involved with streaming services that you guys had launched. What else are you seeing that's kind of intriguing you?
I just have this fascination with big data just because it's so important in my world. So I see companies that are, helping clean up data in the industry. Companies like Exactuals. I like what companies like that are doing. I think that is only helping our industry. I also think that there's going to be a lot more data used around the listener, so that we'll need to see how that all evolves. Where you know the listener can be better served music by utilizing the data around that. So I think that's interesting. The entire blockchain world I'm quite fascinated with, and I know that there are a lot of conversations, and blockchain is used as a buzzword. You know, by a lot of people. It's a lot of people like to use it when they don't understand it, and I don't even pretend to understand it fully. But we'll need to see. And it's good that you've got companies like Spotify and Apple, getting involved in figuring out how that could all work. And I think that the real time reporting of consumption, and even the real time payment of consumption, is going to be an interesting evolution over time. I think that it's a bit like that internet thing was going to be really big back in 1988. That's blockchain is going to be really big, but there's going to be a lot of companies that try to use blockchain technology that are going to go broke before the ultimate use of it happens. So, but yeah, I find that exciting, and I just think that technology in general is going to be very helpful in the music business, and in the platform space with companies like what mVibe is and what we're building. Also think that the trend of catalogs being purchased and amalgamated under the bigger companies, you've got companies like Hypnosis and Reservoir and Concord. They'll continually buy more publishing catalogs and more record labels. And I think that some of the pricing that I see is going to mean that there's going to need to be more creative ways to monetize. I don't think that I think at this point, the streaming revenue is what everybody that owns catalogs is excited about, and it's considered worth the investment, apparently, to spend a lot of time, a big number of times earnings to purchase these catalogs. But I think that there's going to be a bit of a reckoning where some people have paid too much, and they're going to be wanting to be a lot more creative and figuring how to monetize and be a lot more proactive in representing their catalogs, whether it's publishing or sound recording, in the sync space. And I think that's where people like us can come and help with that.
Wow, that was great. Lots of little tidbits there, from AI to blockchain to catalog kind of acquisitions and so forth. I appreciate you piping in with all that, and that's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about at the Music Tectonics conference that we're organizing organizing in October 28th and 29th in Los Angeles. And mVibe has come on to sponsor. Curious what drew you to get involved with that, Jeff?
Well, mostly your good looks and good
I knew it.
good personality. That's what it is. No, I'm. That's definitely part of it, Dimitri. But we obviously want to stay cutting edge, and I know the type of people that you are attracting to that is really high quality, and people that are cutting edge, that are interested in seeing where music technology is going, and we just want to make sure that we stay apprised of where things are going. It's important for us to be able to innovate and to collaborate with other people, and even if they are in what could be considered a competitive space. I think I really believe in collaborating and figuring out ways to partner rather than try to keep everything proprietary and thinking that we can build a little island here. The other thing that's really cool about what you're doing is that you're bringing some investors in, and most of us in the startup world spend the other 8 hours of our day raising capital. So I think that's a good part of it. And then beyond that, just for us as mVibe to be continuing to grow our brand awareness is important to us. So yeah, I'm excited about what you're doing. I think it's good timing with other things that are going on in LA, and we're excited to be part of it.
Awesome. Really appreciate you coming on board, Jeff. And also, thanks for coming on to the podcast. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you bringing me on, and we certainly are excited about the way the music business continues to develop, and we're excited that as a music tech company that we can build things that are going to help the industry overall.
Excellent. Cool. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dmitri.
And thank you for listening to Music Tectonics. Do me a favor, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. That way you'll get notified when we have additional episodes. And come check out musictectonics.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter. That'll give you a $50 discount on the Music Tectonics Conference, which is taking place October 28th and 29th, 2019 in Los Angeles. We're going to have AI's Got Talent. It's an artificial intelligence talent show emceed by Danny Deal from The Verge. We're going to have a blockchain cage match where skeptics and enthusiasts are on stage together, refereed by NWA's Arabian Prince, and so many more sessions you can find out about on the Music Tectonics website. Thanks for joining us.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.